Hey, everyone.
Hi there, folks.
This is Amanda.
And this is Rita.
And you're listening to
I Don't Know Her,
the podcast where we talk about women you've probably never heard of.
But you should have.
And I'm positive today you will.
You will. We're back.
We're back. And better than ever.
Yeah, it's been a shitty 6 weeks.
It has been very terrible.
Mm-hmm.
So, obviously, we posted on our social media that I got COVID, and it didn't go well.
Not at all.
No, I thought I was going to be one of those people that just got like a little sick and then I'd be fine, but that is not what happened. I had a pretty bad time. I ended up getting pneumonia as a secondary bacterial infection, and the pneumonia just wouldn't leave. And I ended up having to do 2 rounds of antibiotics. I had inhalers. I had respiratory exercises.
Jeez.
And I'm still not 100%. I'm still having lingering inflammatory responses in my body. But they're not impeding my life in the same way that they were even 5 days ago. And of course, then my voice just does that. Which is, I mean,
it happens.
It happens to me now.
And Amanda had listed like all the symptoms that they had, and it was like there had to have been 12 or 15 on there.
Yeah, well, and I haven't even added the recent ones with like forgetting how to drive when I'm in the car.
Yeah, that's terrifying to me. I was like, no, I don't like that.
Yeah, so one of my newest things that just started happening over the weekend is I get behind the wheel of a car and I'm going to a place I know how to get to that I've gone to 1,000 times, and suddenly I cannot remember how to get there.
It's wild.
It is. And I've been having that with words sometimes too. When I'm like trying to talk to somebody, I can't remember the words I want to say, or I'll like think of a thing that I want to explain, but I can't even come up with the words to explain it. So Abby will be like, what?
Start drawing a picture.
And I'm like, the thing. And then I'll like put like muffs on my head, and she'll be like, well, I don't know what you're saying.
It's the worst game of Pictionary ever.
It is. It's not great. My charades level is not great.
I'm really good. I would have got it. I would have been like, yes, I know headphones, the purple ones, right? Over by the nightstand.
Yes, you probably would have. You would have been like, I can read their mind.
Well, I got COVID too. Pretty sure.
You're pretty sure you got it from me.
Pretty sure I got it from Amanda.
Yep. This is the sacrifice we made for this podcast. Honestly, though, we both thought we were fine. And again, we had been, both of us, exposed to the public anyway. And we took that risk.
It was bound to happen.
You know, it was, I really felt like there was probably no way I was going to get away with not having it.
Mm-hmm. And
I did contract it at school. So shout out to the teachers who have to go to work during COVID. Be careful. I mean, I wore my mask. I'm one of the lucky people who has an office. So I was able to eat in my office with the door shut, and I always ate alone. I mean, I did everything I possibly could to stay safe, but you cannot 100% stay safe.
Mm-hmm. And I had a very mild case. It was like a common cold, and I did quarantine, I did get tested, and I had a negative test result. So I was like, oh, cool. Like, I'm in the clear. And then I started seeing symptoms, and I was like, well, if I'm negative, this is probably just a cold. It's cold and flu season.
Yeah.
And I talked myself out of it, which was not the right thing to do. So, I mean, if anybody I feel now is exposed, you should get tested and then get tested again.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, because so back in the summer when my son was exposed, we went in and got tested, and he was so anxious about it. They told us that it's like you should wait 5 to 7 days before getting tested, or they might have even said 3 to 5, but I know now they're saying 7 to 10 days after exposure is when you should get tested. And you went in, I think, 5 or 6 days after because we had podcasted on Sunday, and then I woke up Monday morning with a fever, and then my positive test came back on Wednesday.
Yeah, and then that's when I was like, okay, and I pulled myself out of work, waited, and I had to wait for the test too. So that was like 7 days, I think. And then it was negative. So then I was like, oh, cool. Then I'm probably good to go back to work. But then I wasn't feeling well. So I was like, well, I'm just going to stay home anyway.
You know, I think that there's probably going to be people out there who listen to this and they're going to be like, well, this is why you guys shouldn't have been podcasting together in the same room. And that's true. We took that risk knowingly. And we keep our pods, like our bubbles outside of each other, really small.
Yeah.
Like, neither of us are hanging out with other people so that we could do this.
Yeah.
And our jobs put us at risk.
Yeah.
And
I work with the public. They work with the public.
That's how we got it. You know, I mean, you got it from me.
You know, for as long as I have been working with the public and continuously around people who don't wear masks and don't want to, and will still get up all close to you and think it's funny and stuff. And I'm shocked that you're the one that gave it to me.
I mean, I guess if somebody's got to do the job.
COVID buddies.
I mean, I was like, that was the one thing I was really afraid of. And so when your initial test came back negative, I was so happy because I thought, thank God I didn't get anybody sick because everybody else also tested negative and no one else had symptoms except for you. So I thought we were going to be in the clear.
Yeah.
And then when you went for that walk with me and the dogs, which was masked, and you were experiencing what you thought was a cold, I was like, oh, fuck. In any case, we got sick and
we're very lucky to be better.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that none of you get sick and that you're being safe and perhaps safer than we were.
Mm. Well, some of my COVID behavior, quarantine behavior, I should say, I've been kind of treating myself to shows that kids always talked about in school that I just sat there and I was like, yeah, I totally know what happened. And I'm like, what the fuck are they talking about? And I didn't have cable. I had like 3 channels growing up and like 3 PBS channels and that was it. And like a Telemundo, like rural, blurry, scratchy looking Spanish channel. So I've been watching Moesha.
Oh, Moesha was great.
Moesha's really
not
good.
Not good on gay stuff, though. Real not good on gay stuff.
No. And I recently started Dawson's Creek. And like everybody was into Dawson's Creek.
Oh, I was so into Dawson's Creek.
Yeah. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to watch it. Like it's a big show, like 7 seasons or something like that. And I was like, I remember hearing all about it. And James Vanderbeek was the heartthrob of his time. And
no, Team Pacey.
But I have to admit, it's an awful show.
Well, you know, we started rewatching it too over, I don't know, quarantine or something. And we didn't make it very far so far. We're still in the first season. And it was awful. It was hard to watch.
It's painful.
On a number of levels. Not the least of which is the horrible storyline involving my sweetheart Pacey, who I didn't even remember this, that he is like going after very aggressively his much older teacher and eventually they have a relationship of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
It is very creepy.
And they get caught and they go to court and he lies in court for her and she's like smiling at him from her seat and they have this real endearing moment on the beach and I'm like, you just let your rapist get away.
Pedophile. That's a pedophile, guys.
And
just because that person has plumbing that seems less aggressive does not make it any better.
And they romanticize it and make it very sweet. And I'm like, I wonder how many young minds that influenced and created that fantasy, which it is totally a fantasy for boys.
Well, and it's a really negative fantasy for boys, right? Like it sets a tone and a message that boys are like vessels for this kind of thing. Like that it is acceptable and okay if an older woman wants to take advantage of a boy, a child,
mm-hmm.
if she's attractive.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that's really upsetting, because if the sexes of those characters were reversed, right? If we had a young girl named Pacey, and they're freshmen.
Yeah.
You know how old I was when I was a freshman?
14.
There is not a 14-year-old on this planet that it is acceptable to have sex with when you are an adult.
Mm-hmm.
Period. And this teacher like resists or whatever. And I think that was like on the writer's part, trying to give her character, like give her like, I mean, an actual character, semblance of character,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't, because what she should have done is go, no, this is gross. I'm going to switch you into another class.
Yeah, not keep putting yourself in that situation, and also not reporting it. Like, obviously is what would happen. I would hope would happen nowadays. Be like, I need to talk to your parents about this. I need to talk to the principal about this, because also that's a trouble line for the teacher.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that's why I would, if I were a teacher, I would go straight to my principal and my union, and I would say, this child has an obsession with me. They need to be out of my class right now. This is inappropriate.
I was watching it with my son. You know, I was watching it, and he's just kind of around in the room and stuff, and he's doing other things. And I was like, this is so wrong. I was like saying it to the TV. And he's like, why? And I was like, that is an adult. I was like, and that is a child. I was like, that is not okay. I was like, relationships with your teachers is never okay. I think even in college, that's yeah.
I mean, no matter what age you are, there is a power imbalance that happens there with a teacher and a student. You know, the teacher has all of the power in that relationship, no matter what level you're at. And so it is inappropriate at all times for a teacher to have a relationship with a current student.
Yeah.
Now, if you were, you know, in grad school and your professor's just like 10 years older than you, and after you graduate, the two of you start dating, that's a totally different situation.
Different story.
We're not talking about a power imbalance where somebody can affect your future.
Mm-hmm.
I have a serious problem with, like, I would love to say that, okay, well, that was Dawson's Creek, and it was how long ago? 15, 20 years ago?
Probably 20, I would say.
Yeah, probably 20. That makes sense. I'm old. And I would be like, if somebody were like, oh, but that was Dawson's Creek, it was 20 years ago. That doesn't happen anymore. I would like to direct your attention to the current Hulu show, which I think is called A Teacher, where Amy Adams, right? Is it Amy Adams?
I think so.
Is the star, and I have not watched it because I'm afraid if I do, the FBI is going to come looking for me.
But it's the same thing.
But it's the premise is a teacher with a student.
Romanticized.
Yes.
Story. And I saw it popped up in my previews in my Instagram feed, and I was like, oh, what's this? And I was like, ugh. So I was looking at the comments, and so many people were like, this is wrong. This is gross. Like, at Hulu, what the fuck?
Because I cannot imagine, in the year of our Lord 2020, why would you make a television show about a teacher taking advantage of a student? Like, it is wrong. Don't make that show. Don't make the movie.
Because then there's another generation of children that could watch that and think that that's okay.
And my biggest problem with it is that if there are boys who've had experiences where older women, adult women, have been inappropriate with them, whether it's in a teacher or a pastor or a coach or whatever, those boys are now being fed this line of bullshit that it was acceptable, and not just acceptable, but they should like it.
Mm-hmm.
It's
cool.
It's cool and romantic and sexy, and it makes you more of a man.
Yeah.
Well, no, it doesn't. It makes you the victim of a sexual predator.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what we should have on the television screen. That is a sexual predator.
And also the character Dawson, his policing of every girl in his life.
Oh, and
the policing of his mother and what they're wearing, the policing of his first girlfriend and how many partners she's had before him, his policing of his best friend, Joey. Like, if I can't have her, I don't really want her, but no one else date her. I was like, you're a terrible, terrible human being.
How far into the show did you get?
I just started season 2, and I don't know if I can take it anymore.
I will say that I can't, obviously, I haven't rewatched it since then, but I lived for Pacey, and Pacey dates someone who I will not reveal to you, but it is.
I might have Googled some storylines.
Okay. But their storyline is very sweet. And I just, like, first off, I loved Joshua Jackson way back in the day when he was in the Mighty Ducks. And then he was on Dawson's Creek and I loved him some more. And then I watched Fringe and I loved him some more. And I don't know if you follow his politics or anything online, but he is awesome. And, really like he almost got arrested. He's also married to Jodie Turner-Smith. Do you know who that is?
No.
So Jodie Turner-Smith is in Queen and Slim, and she is a dark-skinned Black woman, very, very beautiful. She was a model. She still is a model.
Nice.
But like they are together and they're just darling and lovely, and she posts like photos of him getting up in the morning in the sunshine and smiling at her, and she's like
sweet,
and she's like the best father and partner I could have ever asked for.
Oh,
and so I'm like, oh, he must actually be a good person in real life. So I'm Team Pacey all the way, and he'll always be Pacey to me.
Okay, so it's official. Dawson bad, Pacey good.
And I remember in the show Pacey was better too. Like after the whole teacher thing, which thank God that ended. But yeah,
his character is very identifiable.
But he eventually dates a girl who is pretty mentally ill.
Oh.
And he's real supportive of her, but he doesn't have a lot of tools in his tool belt. And so that was actually, from what I remember, like a pretty good storyline, because it really that was the first time I, as a teenager, had seen someone with, I think she was supposed to have bipolar disorder.
Oh, okay.
And it wasn't depicted in that way that sometimes happens, where they're like completely over the top and whatever. I mean, she was over the top because it's a television show and it's meant for teenagers, but it wasn't like she wasn't going on a killing rampage or something, which is a problem in some things.
Yes.
When they were depicting mental illness. So.
Oh yeah. Heck yeah.
Okay, that's enough Pacey talk for the day. So should we have a Pacey corner? Before we get going on our...
I'm going to get a poster and just put it on the wall.
Oh my God, we should have a Pacey
like a Tiger Beat.
If anybody has a Tiger Beat poster of Pacey, aka Joshua Jackson. Before we get going on our episode today, which is, I'm so excited because it's Rita doing all the work and that's my favorite. We have an announcement about merch.
Yes. We got our brand new stickers in, and we got our pins, that are lapel pins.
And we'll be packaging those things up. What we'd like to know from you guys is, so our Patreons especially, we were going to wait, for those of you who are in the $10 and above tier, wait to send out your packages until your t-shirts are available, which won't probably happen definitely until after the first of the year. Money-wise, that's where we're at. Mm-hmm. So we're wondering if you would rather have 2 packages or 1. And we'll be getting in touch with you guys on Patreon, so look for that. And if you're not a Patreon subscriber yet, you should get on there right now.
Because you can get some swag.
Yeah. For free, basically. And help us make our show so that we can keep doing this. Okay, Rita, are you ready?
Okay, so do you know who Margaret E. Knight is?
Margaret E. Knight. Knight?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I do.
She is an inventor. And I love me some inventors.
What's funny is that when you stepped out to go to the bathroom, I was moving your papers and I could see through the back of your stack is a patent.
I love patents.
You do. You love a good patent.
I do. And I printed it out, yes. So Amanda could look at it and in awe. So Margaret, or Maddie, as her family and friends called her, was born in February 1838 on Valentine's Day, which I just think is sweet, in York, Maine. Her parents were James and Hannah, and she had 2 older brothers, Charlie and Jim. When Maddie was around 3 years old, her father died and left the family pretty tight on resources, and I couldn't find out how her father died. But before her father passed away, he left her one thing for her to inherit, and this was his wooden toolbox of tools. So I kind of feel like he knew he was going to pass away, because you don't just start gathering things to leave people. Yeah, so I don't know if maybe he got sick and it was, pretty bad. So Maddie would tinker with his tools and began to make little things out of wood. She admitted that when she worked with his tools, it helped her feel closer to her father, which I thought was really sweet. I felt like the same way. I would go through my dad's tools and just play with everything. He gets so mad at me because I would break stuff. Like, the rulers that have the bubble, like the glass bubbles, a leveler.
Yeah.
I wanted to see what was inside because the water was like yellow. So I wanted to see what that was. I smashed all three of them to see the liquid that was inside. And my dad was so mad.
Yeah, those are not cheap. It was one of the metal ones, I'm sure, too.
Yes.
Yeah. Those are not cheap.
Because my dad was in construction for a really long time, so he had a lot of really nice stuff. So she started making small toys for her brothers to enjoy. She made a whirligig for Charlie and a jumping jack for Jim. And do you know what a whirligig is?
I was just about to ask. I know I've Googled it at some point in my lifetime to be like, what the hell is this? But
it looks like a big straw with a little pipe that sticks out the end. And then there's like a little stick stuck on the top of it, and it's got a little windmill. So you blow on one side, and the air goes up, and it just spins.
And it spins it.
Okay. And then the jumping jack is like a little man with his arms and legs like on hinges, and you pull a string, and the arms and legs like move up and down.
Okay.
Yeah. Which, like, how entertaining would that be for like 10 minutes, maybe?
I know. Isn't that funny? You're like, cool, I did this 3 times. What am I going to do with it now?
Her mother would have to stay up late at night to work on sewing that she brought in to make money for the family. And it was cold in the evening, so Maddie actually designed and made her mother a foot warmer, which was really neat. The warmer was a short, small, square table with a shelf. And it had curtains attached on 3 sides of it, and then one side was open. She put like a container, like a Dutch oven with embers in it, and put it on the shelf so it could scoot up to her mom, and her mom could put her feet under it, so it would keep her feet warm.
That's really cool.
Yeah, she was just like I feel like she was very sweet, and just these are very caring, very careful gifts, which I think are really nice. She kept a notebook where she would sketch out ideas and labeled it My Inventions. Her brothers called her sketches her brainstorms. Her brothers asked her one spring if she could make them kites. So she sketched a few ideas in her notebook and figured out what she thought would work best, and she built it. And when the winter came, her brothers asked her, can you build us sleds? So she built them sleds and actually caught attention of the neighborhood kids because they were like, whoa, these sleds are really cool. So a few kids came up to her and asked, like, can you build me a sled? And so she was
business.
So she actually was like, yeah, for $0.25 a piece. So she charged for the sleds that she made for the neighborhood kids.
Well, I would charge them too.
That's
a lot of work.
That's a lot of work.
And the materials. But $0.25? Gosh, that doesn't seem like very much.
I know.
That'd be like $1.
$1?
I mean, I know it's like what? I mean, how old was she when she was doing that?
She was around 8 or 9 or 10.
When she's making the sleds?
Mm-hmm.
I thought she was like a teenager.
No, she's little at this time. Very little.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay.
She said the only things that she wanted in her hands were a jackknife, a gimlet, which is like a burring tool for making holes.
I like myself a gimlet too.
And pieces of wood. I like wood too.
I do not.
But don't bump. As her family struggled to make ends meet, her mother, Hannah, made a decision to move the family to Manchester, New Hampshire. So she heard that there was more jobs over there for herself, and then she was going to put her sons to work. And the boys would be able to find work in the textile mills because they used to hire children.
Yep, they sure did.
Not ideal, but the family needed money. So Hannah decided that the three of them would work, and Maddie would continue her secondary school education till she was 12, and then it would be time for Maddie to go to work. And around this time, they're coming off the big boom of the Industrial Revolution, so everything is that used to be kind of handmade are now being like processed materials, lots of machinery, lots of new inventions. Her mother and brothers quickly found work at a cotton mill. The company provided them room and board, and the three of them started working 13-hour days.
Oh, Lord. What's the point of living? Ugh.
Leaving Maddie alone for pretty much her entire day.
Yeah, and it's like it's 13 hours of hard labor. You
know? No, I doubt you're getting to sit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe you get to eat. Maybe you get a bathroom break.
Yeah, it's definitely not good conditions. This is before unions.
Yes. So where they're living are like there's huge brick factories, multi-level factories surrounded by these big brick living quarters. There's not a whole lot to look at. There's not any real like, oh, look at the trees and stuff. It's really industrial. So Maddie would be done with school and she would walk around and peek into the factories. She was often chased away from the overseers because she'd be like in there looking around and they're like, what the hell are you doing in here? Like, get out of here. Yeah. Like scoot her off. One time when she was milling around the mills.
Oh, God.
She saw a group of men working on a huge iron structure in the machine shop. So she came in and asked the overseer what they were building. And he said that they were building a locomotive. She had a lot of questions, and it actually like kind of entertained the machine shop overseer because he was just like, who's this little girl? And she's so inquisitive and she's interested. And he thought she was kind of funny. And at this time is when she turns 12. She begins to work in one of the factories, working on a mechanical loom to create fabrics, which I don't know if you've ever seen those.
I've seen looms, yeah.
She would have to get up to get ready for work at 4:30 in the morning.
Oh, gross.
And she'd be on at 5, and she wouldn't come home till 7:30.
That is a long,
at 12
hard,
years
terrible
old
day. Well, she certainly isn't bored, I suppose.
Yeah. So while she was at work, she witnessed something that would change the path in her life. So you've seen an industrial loom before, or no?
Well, I think so. I think I've seen them in movies, but I mean, I didn't commit it to memory.
So I took a look at, because obviously they didn't have like videos of industrial looms. I had to look at old pictures. So what it is like, if you are in front of the machine, like if you put your wrists together and spread your fingers and like put them like this is how the vertical threads looked. They were kind of side by side and they would lay into each other. So it's like if you put your wrists together and open your hands up and spread your fingers, it's like a trap. So then there was a thing called a shuttle that had a piece of fabric, would shoot across horizontally, and then the trap would close, and then you would push it was like a big wooden stick, and it would tighten up all of the weaves. Yeah, and so then it would make fabric. So I learned a lot about looming, by the way. There's actually a lot of different versions of looming. The shuttle basically looks like a long wooden boat, like a tiny wooden boat, maybe the size of like, I don't know, a block of cheese. It's got a little bobbin in the middle, which is like a tiny spool of thread. And then you pull the thread out of the other side of the shuttle. So it's like a big needle, basically. Both of the sides of the shuttle are pointed and they're tipped with metal tips that are pointy. And the way that it looked is when they would throw the shuttle so that the string would go horizontal over the vertical strings, the metal kind of weighted it so it could go back and forth.
Oh, okay.
So, but kind of a scary piece of equipment. It's real hard wood tipped with metal.
Yeah.
And children are working with this.
Trapping thing. I don't like the idea of this.
No. So before, this process was done by hand. None of it was powered. So people would do this in their homes. It was safe. The looms in the mill that Maddie was working in were powered. So the shuttle that I mentioned earlier, this was mechanized and it would shoot back and forth like super fast to speed up the looming process because obviously they wanted to make more faster. So the shuttles were designed to run on a track, and on each side there was a mechanism that would fling it back. And sometimes the shuttles wouldn't stay on the track.
Uh-oh. That doesn't seem safe.
Yeah, it would fall off the track, it would veer off, or one of the threads would snap and that would send the shuttle shooting off into the air. So basically it was being like projected into the workers.
Yeah, it's like a rocket.
Yeah. So workers were losing eyes.
Oh, God.
Yeah, they were sustaining head injuries that were seriously severe, and some would even die from them because, I mean, this is a giant metal tipped block of wood. Yeah.
This is not safe.
So when Maddie was working one day, one of the shuttles broke loose from a loom, and it knocked her neighbor Rebecca in the head, leaving the girl severely injured and unconscious. And she said, like, work barely even stopped. Like, they kind of gasped and they were like, back to work. And so then they had to just keep going, and like the overseer just picked the girl up and took her out. So
what is this, Amazon?
So Maddie was stunned by what she saw, because obviously she knows the girl, but also Maddie's a child and she just saw another child get hurt. I bet that's traumatizing. And
I mean, hitting the head is likely serious.
Very. So she said that she just kept playing it over and over in her head. She was just like, this, what can I do about this? Like, this shouldn't be happening. So she sketched out some ideas and she came up with a simple and effective solution. She took her idea to the overseer that she had chatted with back in the machine shop. And she asked him, like, this is an idea that I have. What do you think? Do you think it could be made? So he took a look at it and he said the idea was solid. It was simple. So he goes and he takes it over to the engineers and is like, take a look at this design. And basically what it is like a long metal guard that she attached on both sides to go over the shuttle path. So if the shuttle goes flying off, it hits the guard.
Yeah.
And
that makes sense and seems also a little obvious.
I know. That's why I was like, okay, so a 12-year-old saw this, gents, with your brilliant minds.
Yeah.
So they took the idea, they tried it out, and it worked. So a few weeks later, they have machine shop guys come in and they put metal guards on all the looms. So Maddie felt super accomplished. I mean, just like no one else is going to get hurt, in that way. It was fun to come up with her own design.
Yeah.
Of course, at the time, she wasn't thinking to do a patent on the idea because she
didn't
didn't even know what a patent was.
I know. I was like, I mean, I'm glad this little kid was like really smart, but I feel real bad already because like these adults are like just taking advantage of her. Yeah. They're like, nice idea, kid. I'm going to make money off of
it. She continued to work at the mill into her late teens. As the cotton mill slowed down and her health began to waver because she was breathing in cotton fibers day in and day out, and it was affecting her health. And also her legs, like having to stand for that long and the repetitiveness of the motions. So she just decided to move on. She's like, the cotton mill, the looming, it's dangerous. It's agonizing. It's long. So she took a few odd jobs here and there. She started doing like home repair because she was really good at fixing things. She dabbled in photography, and I couldn't pronounce the name of the type of photography it was. It's where they put it on a metal plate.
Oh, yeah, daguerreotype, right?
Is that how you say it?
Something like that, right?
Not
I think
sure.
it's daguerreotype. If that's right, I feel so smart. Oh my God.
I'm going to play it. I'm going to Google it. I'm going to play it. We'll see what's up. I was just like, photography. She did some engraving and she did some upholstery work too. So in 1867, we're jumping a little forward. She's 29 now. She decides to move away from her family and she moves to Springfield, Massachusetts. There she found work with the Columbia Paper Bag Company, and she found a place to live with a roommate named Sadie, which I love that name, by the way.
Yeah, I do too.
When she started with the company, she was really underwhelmed with the bags that they made. The paper was hand cut, and then the edges were pressed, like glued, pasted, and pressed together by hand, which is super slow.
Yeah.
The shape of the bag was more of like an envelope. The ends peaked.
What?
Yeah.
That seems not
it didn't
great
even
for
stand
holding
upright.
things.
They were narrow. Large items would split the bags open.
These are bad bags.
Pretty impractical. So one of the men she worked with was like grumbling about the bags, and he's like, yeah, actually, there's a couple people who are trying to invent a machine to like make better bags. And part of an article that I read called The Evolution of the Grocery Bag, which is the most riveting article I've ever read, by the way.
Oh, this is great.
It was written by Henry Petrosky. He said that this is what Maddie said. Or this is what Maddie did, sorry. So after a while, she began to experiment with a machine that could feed, cut, and fold the paper automatically. And most important, she wanted to form a squared bottom bag. Because,
no shit.
Duh. And this is crazy at the time. I didn't know this. Flat bottom bags were considered an artisanal item. What?
Like for your little candy shops or something. I don't know. That
I
seems
guess
strange.
it was not really available for common people. Yeah. Common in quotations.
Well, I guess and the envelope style I think you're talking about is like what we would get bread in now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is
and
that what the style of bag was that she was dealing with before?
And like if you go to the hardware store, I guess the paper bags were like just paper cones.
Oh, yeah.
But it's like why can't poor people have square bottoms? What's going on?
Those are for rich folks.
Yeah.
Was it did they take more paper? Did they take more time?
I think because they take more time because these were being handmade. So Maddie was like, this is about comfort and practicality. And like, why do fucking rich people not need to haul their groceries in a cone? Like, what's this? This is uneven.
In a cone.
So she set up her workshop in the basement of her boarding house and stayed up most nights sketching, researching, and brainstorming about what this machine needed to do. Her roommate, Sadie, would like come and check on her because she'd be up all hours.
Her roommate?
Her roommate. I know. I kind of thought about that too.
I mean, just saying.
She'd see if Maddie was okay. She was curious how the project was coming. Her gal pal, her bosom buddy, her cabbage patch.
Sadie, her real good friend for life.
Oh my God, you're making me cry. So when she started her prototype stages, she first made it out of paper so she could like trim the edges and stuff and see kind of like how it looked.
She made like the machine out of paper?
Just a little prototype.
Okay.
Just to kind of block it together and see how it would go. She refined it and then she eventually was satisfied with it. So she built her official prototype out of wood. Here, she was able to put it to work, adjust the kinks out, and make sure that it worked properly. So she used it a couple times. It got jammed. It would do different little shit, and she'd work on it and fix it. So with the use of gears, levers, springs, and blades, she created a machine that cut, pasted, pressed, and produced a square bottom bag.
Wow.
It took her 2 years of redoing to refine it and get it to work.
I can totally imagine it taking it that long. I mean, especially if you're not, like, she's not working with a team of people.
No.
Where she's coming up with an idea and somebody else is building it.
Mm-hmm.
She's doing everything from start to finish, editing and revising and all of that stuff. Like, that's a lot of work.
All of the
impressive.
wheels and the gears and stuff, she's carving from hand.
Oh, yeah, because it's wood.
It's wood.
Wow. Wow. I'm surprised it didn't take her 10.
So this machine is complicated as fuck. Okay. So I read the operation details that were written by her. It's like 7 pages long. Way to go, Maddie. But some big words. It was basically like, what? I was like trying to get it. So the prototype layout is 7 pages, and it's all labeled with like capital A, B, and C all the way to Z, and then lowercase A, B to C all the way to Z. So it's like capital A, start turning, goes to little lowercase f, push capital E, G, H, and then turn little case I. And I was like, I don't know where anything is.
You're not like standing there with like.
No, it was
like
very
worse than an
complicated.
IKEA.
So it was. Might as well have been in Swedish. So the best way to explain it that I can do myself is it had a bunch of gears and you were able to hand crank it. So the gears would start moving. It would feed paper from a big roll of paper. And the first thing it would do is it would glue and paste a side. So it made a tube of paper. So imagine a tube of paper, and then it would flatten it, and then it would cut the bottom so that it would fold in on itself and create that square bottom, and then create those square sides. That's the best I can do.
I can see it in my head. I really can.
So she knew this was a golden idea, so she was determined to get a patent on it before she took it to factories to try to sell it. So she attended an inventors club that had formed in Springfield, and there she got advice to take her prototype to a machine shop in Boston so she could create an iron version of her invention and then take it to the patent office.
An iron version.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
So an actual machine. She went to Boston by herself. Gasp.
Oh, no.
I know. Sadie was like, "You're going to Boston alone?
Without me? Your gal pal?" And tell me how old she is now.
She's 31.
Okay.
So she rented a small
And she's not married?
No, she's not.
But she's hanging out with Sadie all the time. They live together?
Yes.
Okay. Those are really
create your own narrative, folks. So she rents a small room with her savings in Boston. She wanted to stay in Boston because she was like, I am going to supervise this shit. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
You're making my invention. Yeah, it's totally her baby. So the iron version of her invention took a few weeks to make, and then she headed to the patent office. When she arrived and presented her machine, she was ready to fill out the paperwork, and the clerk was like, there's something wrong. He's like, this invention was brought in last week and patented already.
No, I'm about to get real pissed.
She was like, what the fuck?
Of course she is.
And she's like, that's impossible. She's like, this is mine. Who submitted that patent? The man's name was Charles F. Annan. He was one of the machinists from the shop where they were building her prototype.
No.
And he copied her work and he made it himself.
No.
Yep. So he copied her prototype identically and took it to the patent office.
No.
Yeah. And he already knew when she was going to go, so he tried to go before her.
Of course he did. Oh my God,
Yeah.
I want to posthumously kick that guy's ass.
So she ends up taking this guy to court. And
I was gonna say that. I was like, I have no idea what the laws were like then, but I hope she fucking sued his ass.
she used all her money and she spent it on a really, really good attorney because she was just like, this is not happening.
Yeah.
So Annan's defense was that the machine was too complex for a woman to possibly understand, let alone invent.
Everything in my body is screaming at this person.
So Maddie, under her lawyer's advice, brought her roommate on as a witness.
Yes, her roommate. Let's talk a little bit more about her roommate, Sadie.
So Sadie testifies in court saying that she's watched Maddie work on inventing this machine
For 2 years.
for 2 years.
Because they've been living together
For 2 years.
in their 30s. Like you do with friends in the 1800s.
In the 1800s. So also Maddie had a ace up her sleeve. She submitted her work journal because she still kept her journals
Yes.
and her meticulously hand-drawn blueprints.
Yeah, which you could see probably all of the
They're
changes that
dated,
she made and
signed.
mm-hmm. Yep.
So she's like, boom, mic dropped. She had endless data drawings and notes pertaining to the creation of the machine. Charles had nothing.
Of course he didn't, because he stole it.
So they were like, dude, like the judge literally was like, you suck. Like you're kind of a jerk. Actually, no, you're a jerk. Get out of my court. He was like, I think part of what he said is like, may your name be scourged on the something of history. Like,
well, it is.
Yeah, you're a dick, Charles.
We're cursing your name.
So Maddie won her case, and she was able to receive the patent on her machine on July 11th, 1871. If you're looking for the patent, it is U.S. patent number 116842.
I'm writing it down right now.
Liar. A manufacturing firm offered to buy the machine from Maddie, which was kind of her plan. She wanted to sell it.
She's not going to make them herself.
But then she was like, no, I want my own business.
What? She does decide to fucking create her own paper bag company?
So with a business partner, she sets up
Sadie?
No, some gent. She sets up the Eastern Paper Bag Company. With her company, she received royalties from the company and the production and everything. She lived a pretty modest life. Like, she was really far from being a rich billionaire, but she was set. She was comfortable.
She's a good middle class. Huh?
Yeah. She didn't stop inventing, though. She has over 90 original inventions credited to her name.
Whoa.
She has over 20 patents under her name. At the time, shoes were still being hand cut and sewn. So she invented machines that cut shoe patterns and earned herself 6 more patents with these machine inventions. Wow. She moved on to working on small inventions, like little ones, to like, she made a skirt protector for women so the hems of their skirts when it was raining wouldn't get dirty.
Oh.
To improving window frames. Like, she would take something and see it could be better. She said it could always be better. So she improved window framing. She invented a numbering machine for counting like things coming off a production line. She even went as far as creating complex components for rotary engines and car motors. She has another patent in her name, which was a sleeve valve automobile engine, the first of its kind. She had no formal education. I mean,
she just had a good mind.
Yeah. She said that she struggled constantly to prove herself without having that education to lean back on. And she had to try to describe that even without that education, that she just knew how to study things, understand them, and create. Which was like, how do you explain that to people?
Well, I mean, I think it's because we have a limited understanding of how our brains work already.
Mm-hmm.
And also we hang a lot on the idea of an education, because education was the playground of the rich for so long.
Yeah.
That it became like, oh, because I'm educated, I'm therefore better. But that's not really how it works. That's not really how education works anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you learn things at school that you didn't potentially know before, but it doesn't imbue like your entire intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like there are plenty of people who are intelligent who never went to college or what have you, that it doesn't decrease their amount of intelligence. It means that they don't have a wealth of knowledge in this specific thing. So she understands how mechanics works, but probably doesn't know, like, she couldn't like name off the names of the inventors.
Mm-hmm.
So she doesn't have memorization, and she doesn't know the history of like, how did the wheel come to be? But she understands how a wheel works, and that's what matters when you make something.
Yeah. That's exactly like how she saw herself. She's like, I can't really name this, this, and this, but I can make this, this, and this.
Yeah. And which one is more valuable in the end?
Right.
The person who can recite facts, or the one who can make your life better and easier?
Right. She said this, I'm only sorry I couldn't have had as good a chance as a boy. I sighed sometimes because I was not like other girls, but wisely concluded that I couldn't help it and sought further consolation from my tools.
And Sadie.
Sorry,
I can't. I know that is factually incorrect. We have no idea if that's true. Just if you're checking on us, we do not know. I'm speculating.
So Margaret lived till she was 76 in Framingham, Massachusetts. She never did marry, never had kids. She never stopped inventing. She was always trying to find new ways to solve problems. In 2006, she was inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame, and an actual scaled down but fully functional patent model of her original bag making machine is in the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C.
Wow.
Her original prototype is displayed at the Natural Museum of American History.
And that's the wood one that she hand carved?
I think it's either the iron one or the wood one.
Okay.
But her original one where she submitted the patent for.
I would love to see that original hand carved wood one.
I'm going to show you.
Ooh. I meant in person, but I also want to see it on a piece of paper.
So where I got my information from was from Smithsonian Magazine, Britannica.com, AmericanHistory.edu. I read 2 books about Maddie. The first one was The Marvelous Maddie by Emily Arnold McCulley. And then another one called In the Bag, Margaret Knight Wraps It Up, which I thought was a clever.
That's a real clever name.
That was written by Monica Culling. Smithsonian Magazine had an article called Meet the Female Inventor Behind Mass Market Paper Bags by Ryan P. Smith and The Evolution of the Grocery Bag by historian Henry Petrosky.
I mean, I love that name of that article. And it is perfectly the most boring name you could come up with, but at the same time is just blessedly nerdy.
And I just handed Amanda my phone, and that is the miniature model of her machine.
How fascinating. I would love to see someone even if it was animated, I'd love to see how it works. And
that's how it looks on the side. So I'm showing Amanda what it looks like from the side, kind of the inner guts of it. It kind of looks
there are so many letters on here. You're correct. That this is unreadable.
It's like looking at constellations without the lines.
It is. Yeah, it's definitely a little wild. Someone much smarter than me would have to be able to.
Yeah, and the way that she wrote the order of functions, she's a wonderful writer, very descriptive. Yeah. And very just straight to the point.
And that it's so interesting that she didn't have a formal education and had to quit by the time she was 12 and was still a good writer.
Yeah.
Imagine the kind of lengths that she could have gone to had she been able to go and have a full education. Because it opens doors.
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily change how intelligent she was. It just allows more things to be accessed.
Well, even the depth of her creativeness, if even her same social status stayed the same and same upbringing, but make her a man.
Oh, yeah.
She probably would have gotten a scholarship to go somewhere.
Or at least, at the very least, she would have been in a company that kept promoting her and allowed her to have upward mobility. Yeah.
So that is Margaret's story.
I really loved that. It was delightful, honestly. It was fun and kind of low stakes. I liked it for our first foray back into the
coming
show.
Back into this. And also, it's something we use every day.
It is.
I would fall apart without a square bottom bag.
Yeah, because we personally, when we're not using our reusable bags, we use paper bags so we can recycle them.
So next time you're grabbing your groceries and you're able to pull up all of those groceries and get to the door and they don't fall out the bottom, just say a little thank you to Margaret.
Yeah. And say her full name again.
Margaret E. Knight.
Margaret E. Knight. Thank you, Margaret. Before we go, I did want to share something. I wanted to share it on social media, but I didn't really know how to do so in a way that meant was respectful. But the last full show we did was when I talked about Elsa Blankstead, or maybe it was a couple before that, but it was one of the last ones we did. Okay. And Elsa Blankstead, if you remember, was the woman who became a music engineer. She created the music for movies, and on top of that had this crazy life story. And by crazy, I don't mean mentally ill. I mean as in she had a pretty wild story. Yeah. I'm trying to move away from using those kinds of terms, but it's still, I'm a work in progress. She had a pretty wild story. She, remember, survived the Holocaust, was pregnant as a teenager. The baby was supposedly dead, but it wasn't. She found out when she was much, much older.
Reunited.
And I mentioned quite a few times in it that her grandson had made a film about her.
Oh, okay.
And I had watched it. That was one of the things I used. And so this is from Sandy Kopatopoulos, the grandson of Elsa Blankstead. I just listened to your podcast dedicated to my grandmother's incredible, dramatic, and somehow miraculous life story. I want to thank you and also congratulate you on doing such an amazing job. It was fascinating to relive my own family story from a fresh, original, and upbeat point of view. It was pure joy.
Oh,
I will make sure that my mother, Lily, hears it too. That's Elsa's daughter, the one that she was reunited with. I'm confident that she'll get a kick out of it since your storytelling, information, and personal perspective are spot on. And then he invited us to, if we ever come to Europe, to stop by.
we've got friends.
So I just wanted to share that because we get some pretty cool feedback from our fans and our listeners, which is great. But having that kind of feedback from someone, that was the thing I was really worried about when we were talking about Elsa, because I knew there was a chance that, I knew her relatives were alive, right? It was very obvious. She just died in 2019.
Yeah, well, I felt like that with Betty Okino too. And I was like, because she's still alive.
Yep, she's still alive. And she
shared one of our Instagram things.
Yeah, it's always really helpful to know that we're doing someone's life story justice, but also doing it accurately. And, because we do like to, in the case of the woman you just talked about, throw in little side comments and stuff like that. And that's because we're also trying to entertain people who are listening to us. So if you are someone who's a relative of someone who we've talked about before, please do reach out. It's really great to hear that kind of stuff because we do put a lot of work and time into our stuff. So thank you for listening, everybody. And thank you to Lucas.
Thanks, Lucas.
And thank you to Jennifer Finch, the creator of our lovely theme music.
It's good to be back.
It's real good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rita.
I can't wait for next one.
Have a great week. Don't get COVID.
Team Pacey. Out. Can I tell you my idea for a new podcast?
Yeah.
It is completely about recipes with guacamole, and it's called Guac Talk.
I want to be on Guac Talk.
That's it. That's all it's about is avocados.